You feel like you're doing all the right things, visualizing, meditating, saying the affirmations, watching the signs, aligning your thoughts, but something still feels off, subtly, quietly, frustratingly off, like reality keeps bending away from what you know is meant for you, like you're tuned into the wrong movie, wearing the right outfit, speaking the right lines, but the script doesn't match. What if I told you, it's not your intention that's misaligned, it's your identity. It's not your desire that's the problem. It's the frequency you're unknowingly broadcasting, because the universe, the field, the quantum fabric of reality, it's not responding to what you want. It's responding to what you are, what you embody, moment to moment, breath by breath. Not what you're reaching for, but what you're rehearsing in your nervous system. Not your dreams, but your default vibration. And this is the part most people miss. You can be speaking abundance and vibrating lack. You can be scripting love and embodying abandonment. You can be visualizing clarity while your nervous system is still frozen in confusion. And the field picks up that. It doesn't hear your words. It reads your waveform. It reads the tone underneath your actions, the feeling under your focus, the echo in your emotional field. This is how you shift into the wrong timeline without even realizing. You're on a stage that looks like what you asked for, but the music is wrong. The air feels heavy. The timing is off. The people don't truly see you. It's not that your manifestation failed, it's that your frequency chose a timeline that matched what you were unconsciously carrying, the timeline of your hidden beliefs, your suppressed fears, your unprocessed grief. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what your body believes is safe to receive. So here's the real question. Not what do I want to create, but what am I actually available for? What am I still secretly bracing against? What identity am I still clinging to because it feels familiar, even if it's misaligned? Because you can't hold the vibration of a future you're scared to inhabit. You can't collapse time toward a reality that threatens your nervous system's sense of control. This is why it's not enough to think new thoughts. You have to become a new signal. Embodiment is the bridge, not with effort, with essence. Not by managing, by magnetizing, not with control, but with coherence. And coherence only happens when your heart, your body, and your breath believe the future you're calling in. When they stop fighting the timeline, when they stop rehearsing the old pain, when they stop gripping the now out of fear, it will vanish. That's when the shift happens. Subtle at first, a softness, a quiet, a space, a breath that feels a little deeper than before, a tension that loosens without asking permission. That's how you know. Your frequency is clearing, your field is reorganizing, your signal is starting to match the reality you truly meant to manifest. It's not that you're not powerful, it's that you've been powerful in the wrong direction, manifesting realities that match your inner distortions instead of your true essence. And now you're remembering. It's not more doing, it's more receiving. It's not more steps, it's more stillness. It's not more plans, it's more presence. Because from presence, the right timeline can find you. You don't need to chase it. You just need to tune your signal so it has somewhere to land. I know the ache of trying so hard to get it right, watching your thoughts like a hawk, scripting your ideal day, asking the universe with the purest intention you can muster. And still, what arrives doesn't feel like yours. Or it comes in fragments, almosts, near misses, situations that resemble your desire but carry the same old emotional residue, like the scene changed, but the feeling didn't. The partner shows up, but the dynamic still echoes abandonment. The opportunity lands, but the self-doubt still chokes the joy. The number in the bank grows, but the anxiety still hums underneath. You wonder, what am I missing? And the answer, though subtle, changes everything. You're manifesting from the body, not the mind. From the field of your being, not the story in your head. That means your emotional signature, your default frequency, the version of you that shows up without effort. That's what the quantum responds to. So if your nervous system is still rehearsing fear, even while you affirm safety, you're radiating the timeline of protection, not expansion. If your breath is shallow and your muscles tight as you visualize abundance, you're broadcasting scarcity through your biology, and the field listens. It listens to the sum total of who you are being, not what you are trying to become. Think of it like music. You can say the lyrics of love, but if the melody underneath is fear, the song won't land. It won't resonate with the frequency of the reality you're calling in. It's like dialing the number for joy, but your phone is set to airplane mode. You can press all the right buttons, but you're not transmitting. That's why you feel the dissonance. That ache, that sense of something being off, is your signal misfiring. A part of you is still gripping, controlling, rehearsing the old trauma. And it's that grip that blocks the shift. Control is a static signal. It's like white noise in the field. It disrupts coherence. It fragments your frequency. And manifestation is coherence. It's when all of you, thought, breath, identity, nervous system, emotion, are harmonized into a single signal. That's when timelines collapse. That's when reality shifts. But when control is driving, your field is divided. One part is calling in the desire. Another is bracing for disappointment. One part is saying yes with your words. Another is whispering no with your subconscious. And the universe, ever faithful, responds to the louder frequency, which is almost always the one you don't realize you're sending. This is why you might be manifesting the wrong reality, not because you failed, but because your system was out of sync. You were chasing the dream from a version of you that still expected the pain. You were trying to leap forward while anchored to an old identity. And here's the truth. No matter how much you want something, you can't receive a reality your current self doesn't recognize as safe. That's why change often feels so slow. Not because the universe is withholding, but because your vibration is still entangled with the past. So the real shift isn't in doing more, it's in feeling differently, in softening the grip, in regulating the breath, in calming the nervous system so it stops scanning for what might go wrong and begins receiving what's going right, in letting your body believe in a future that's gentler, brighter, safer than what came before. That belief, not in your mind but in your cells, is the bridge. That's the signal the field responds to. Not effort, but essence. When your body becomes a space of openness rather than defense, you become magnetically available to timelines that match that openness. When your breath deepens, your frequency clears. When your heart starts beating with trust instead of tension, the reality you long for starts reaching back, not in ideas, but in actual tangible manifestations that feel right, whole, peaceful, because they don't just match your desires, they match your being. And here's the miracle. This shift doesn't require years of work. It begins in a moment, a breath, a single decision to stop managing and start magnetizing, to stop gripping and start remembering, to tune your signal not to what you fear but to what you are becoming. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are just awakening to the truth. Your frequency was always the key. There's a moment, quiet, often invisible, where the misalignment starts. It's not dramatic, not loud. It happens in a thought you barely notice, a moment of tightening, a subtle drop in trust, a shift from presence into performance. And that's when you slip into the wrong timeline, not because you chose badly, but because you stopped being the version of you who could receive the one you actually wanted. It happens when you check your phone again for that message, not because you need it, but because you're measuring your worth by its arrival. It happens when you walk into a room already bracing to be unseen, so you armor yourself with confidence instead of being you. It happens when you sit to meditate, and your mind is still calculating timelines, still negotiating with the field, still trying to force the flow. And that frequency, that subtle undercurrent, tells the quantum, I am not yet who I say I am. I don't yet trust this will come. And the field, honest and immediate, echoes back, not yet. Because manifestation isn't about deserving, it's about matching, not with logic, with vibration. And the field doesn't hear, I want this. It hears the signal underneath, I don't have it. It hears the nervous system saying, I'll only feel safe when this arrives. And it waits, because safety is the doorway, and you haven't opened it yet. So the timeline stays distant, not because it's far, but because you are. Distant from the version of you who already holds it. Distant from the coherence required to fold that reality into now. Here's what most don't realize. Timelines don't respond to intensity. They respond to integrity. The alignment between who you say you are and who you actually feel yourself to be. So when you're trying hard to be high vibe but your core is still echoing scarcity, your field is fractured, the signal is fuzzy, the timeline can't land. It needs clarity, it needs calm, it needs congruence. Because timelines are like radio stations. They only tune in when your entire frequency becomes the antenna, and you are the antenna. Your body, your breath, your heart field, they are not accessories to manifestation. They are the source. That means the more regulated your nervous system is, the clearer your field becomes. the more emotionally safe you feel, the faster timelines collapse into presence. Because safety is not passive, it's vibrational. It's a signal that says, I can hold what I'm calling in. I'm not afraid to be seen. I'm not bracing for loss. I'm ready. So ask yourself, not do I want it, but can I hold it without tension? Can I embody this reality in advance, not by pretending, but by softening? Can I let go of urgency long enough for trust to become a felt experience, not just an idea? Because urgency is a trauma response, not a frequency match. It scrambles your signal. It says to the field, I don't trust this will come unless I force it. And the field responds, then you are not yet aligned. Alignment isn't about perfection. It's about peace. It's about presence. It's about letting your now become coherent with your desired next. And that coherence begins when you stop outsourcing your readiness to circumstances. When you decide, here and now, to vibrate like it's already done. Not by faking, by feeling safe even without the evidence, feeling worthy even without the proof, feeling open even when the timeline is still invisible. That's embodiment, that's frequency, that's the key, and it's not far. It's not a leap, it's a return. To the version of you who doesn't need to grip because they already are. The version of you who doesn't chase because they already match. The version of you whose presence is the prayer, not the asking, but the answer. That's when the timeline shifts. That's when the field moves. Not because you did more, because you became more coherent. Not because you demanded it, because you remembered it was already yours. I used to think manifestation was about thinking bigger, dreaming louder, writing the perfect script of what I wanted down to the detail. I thought if I could just get clear enough, precise enough, focused enough, reality would have no choice but to respond. And sometimes it did, but not in the way I expected. What came would shimmer at the surface but feel hollow at the core. The job would look perfect on paper, but drain my soul. The person would mirror my desires, but trigger my wounds. The opportunity would arrive, but I'd find myself shrinking inside it. And I began to realize that the field wasn't ignoring me. It was being exact. It wasn't responding to the details of my dream. It was responding to the density of my signal, the subtle beliefs I hadn't healed, the frequencies I hadn't yet released, the identity I hadn't yet upgraded. Because manifestation doesn't happen through mental clarity alone. It happens through vibrational congruence. That means what you're calling in must feel like home to your body. If it feels like a threat, your system will unconsciously block it, and the field will obey. So many of us are manifesting realities that match our survival patterns, not our soul's expansion. We're pulling in people, places, situations that resonate with who we had to become to feel safe, not who we're here to be. And it's not your fault. Your body is brilliant. It learned to protect you, to anticipate disappointment, to brace against the unknown. But those protective patterns carry a frequency, and that frequency has a timeline. And if you stay in those patterns, even unconsciously, you'll keep manifesting from the wrong script. You might get a version of your desire, but it will be shaped by fear. You'll call in a relationship, but it'll echo the abandonment wound you never got to heal. You'll manifest the business, but sabotage the growth because success feels unfamiliar. You'll receive the abundance, but still feel like it could vanish at any moment. Because until you feel safe to receive it, you won't be able to stay in it. The timeline won't stick. Not because it's not meant for you, but because you haven't become the version of you who can live there, in peace. This is why embodiment matters more than vision, why regulation matters more than hustle, why nervous system safety is the new success metric. Because you don't manifest with your mind, you manifest with your field, and your field is clearest when your body feels safe, your heart feels open, your breath feels free. That's when the signal sharpens. That's when the quantum responds. That's when the right timeline recognizes you and anchors into your now. So the real work, it's not about trying harder. It's about softening deeper, slowing down enough to notice when you're gripping, when you're performing, when you're posturing your frequency instead of embodying it. It's about catching those micro moments, the pause before the people-pleasing, the tightness before the over-explaining, the breath you hold before asking for what you need, and choosing a different signal, a signal of self-trust, of worthiness, of, I don't have to earn this anymore, because you don't. You don't have to earn what already matches your truth. You don't have to fight for what's already vibrationally aligned. The timeline you're meant for doesn't need convincing. It needs coherence. It needs the you who isn't waiting to be chosen, who isn't performing to be enough, who isn't sacrificing their peace to match someone else's pace. That you? They're not just manifesting, they're magnetic. And in that magnetism, things don't take time, they take truth. The more you become who you truly are, the more the right reality accelerates toward you, not as a reward, as a reflection, because the field is honest. It mirrors what you are. And when what you are is love, safety, openness, power, the wrong timelines simply fall away. You don't even need to reject them. They just can't find resonance with you anymore. That's the power of frequency. That's the precision of embodiment. That's the quiet miracle of becoming the version of you who no longer waits, but remembers. There's something exquisitely painful about almost getting what you want. The near miss, the glimpse, the feeling of being on the edge of the timeline, close enough to feel it, far enough to doubt it. You wonder if you're cursed, if you're doing it wrong, if the universe is testing you. But what if it's not punishment at all? What if it's precision? What if those almosts are showing you exactly where your signal still stutters, where your frequency is close, but not quite coherent? Because the field doesn't deal in punishment. It deals in resonance. And sometimes the wrong reality isn't wrong. It's just a near match. A signal that's 80% aligned, but still carrying 20% of the old you. The you who questions your worth. The you who expects things to fall apart. The you who still tenses when things get good. And that 20% is enough to tilt the entire timeline, to bend the outcome, to distort the dream. Think of it like tuning a radio. You can be almost on the right station and still hear static, still miss the music. That's what it feels like to live in a near-match timeline. Things appear aligned on the outside, but your body knows the dissonance. The way you second-guess yourself around them, the way you edit your truth to keep them close, the way your joy feels conditional, like you have to keep proving your worth to keep the dream intact. That's not the dream. That's the residue of the old frequency trying to live inside the new one, and it never lasts. Not because you're broken, because the field won't stabilize what isn't congruent. And that's not a failure, it's feedback. Precise, compassionate, energetic feedback that says, you're close. Now let go of the part that's still pretending, the part still performing, the part still negotiating with worthiness. Because here's the truth, the timeline you're meant for won't ask you to betray yourself to stay in it. It won't need you to dim, twist, shrink, or harden. It will recognize you. It will match your wholeness. Not your wounds, not your performance, your presence. But to live in that timeline, you must become the frequency of wholeness, not later, now, in the small, invisible moments, the breath before you answer, the stillness before you reach, the honesty in your no, the surrender in your yes. Because those micro-signals build your field. They reinforce your identity. And identity is the portal. You don't manifest from effort, you manifest from embodiment. From becoming the version of you who doesn't wait for permission to feel safe, who doesn't outsource their power to external outcomes, who doesn't confuse intensity with intimacy or chaos with aliveness. That version of you, calm, clear, rooted, sends a signal so stable, the right timeline can't help but collapse into now, not by chance, by physics, because when the frequency is coherent, reality responds without confusion. You become like gravity to what is meant. You stop chasing. You stop convincing. You stop rehearsing pain. And in that space, the right people, opportunities, experiences arrive differently. They don't test you. They mirror you. They flow with you. They fit not just your fantasy, but your nervous system. They feel like home. And here's where it gets subtle. Sometimes before the right timeline locks in, the field will send you echoes, not to confuse you, to calibrate you, to say, is this still your pattern? Do you still need this lesson? Are you still available for this frequency? And you get to decide, not with force, with presence, with the soft power of saying, not anymore, of walking away without collapse, of staying open without grasping, of choosing your vibration over your fear of missing out. That choice, small as it may seem, is a frequency shift, a dimensional pivot, a quantum declaration that says, I'm no longer building from lack, I'm building from alignment. And when you hold that signal, gently, steadily, unapologetically, the wrong reality begins to unravel on its own. It can't hold its shape in your new field, and the right one, the one that fits your truth without resistance, starts rising to meet you. There's a kind of magic that happens when you stop forcing alignment and start allowing it. A magic that doesn't announce itself with fireworks or fanfare, but with silence, with space, with a deep breath that feels like truth settling into the bones. It's the moment you realize you don't have to chase your timeline. You just have to stop chasing what never matched. Because the moment you release what you were gripping from fear, the timeline that was quietly waiting on the edge of your coherence finally has permission to arrive. This is the part where most people give up, not because they're weak, but because they're still addicted to evidence. Still waiting for signs louder than their doubt. Still treating reality like something to conquer rather than something to tune. And so they bounce between methods, rituals, teachers, trying to fix the frequency from the outside in. But you can't hack your way into alignment. You can only relax into it. You can only create the inner safety required for the right reality to land. Because the field isn't resisting you. It's reading you, constantly, accurately, with no judgment, just reflection. If your signal says, I'm unworthy, it reflects unworthiness. If your signal says, I have to work harder, it mirrors effort, not ease. If your signal says, it's not safe to shine, it clouds your brilliance with delay and distortion. But the moment your signal says, I am enough as I am, the field reorganizes. Subtly, elegantly, instantly. Not because the universe suddenly agreed, but because your frequency finally stopped resisting itself. And that's when the timeline unlocks. Not with fanfare, with flow. With synchronicities that feel like breath. With clarity that doesn't need convincing. With people who feel like portals. Not because they complete you, but because they reflect the version of you that was always whole. You don't have to strategize it. You just have to be it. Embody it. Let it hum in your field with consistency, not performance, presence. This is why nervous system regulation is not a side practice. It is the manifestation technique, because your body is the bridge, your breath is the tuning fork, your presence is the dial that turns static into signal. When your system is calm, the field can finally hear you clearly, and more importantly, you can hear it. You can feel the guidance that doesn't shout, the shifts that don't scream, the invitations that don't beg for attention but simply resonate, because your channel is finally open. And when that happens, you begin to realize something profound. You were never manifesting things. You were manifesting versions of yourself. The job, the partner, the house, the health. They're all expressions of identity, extensions of frequency. They are mirrors, not destinations. And the moment you become the version of you who naturally lives in that reality, the mirror has no choice but to reflect it. That's not magic. That's physics. That's coherence. That's embodiment. So the next time you feel off course, ask gently, what part of me is still trying to earn this? What version of me is still rehearsing struggle as a signal? What belief am I embodying that says, I need this to feel whole? And can I let that dissolve? Not by force, but by remembering who I was before I forgot. Because you were never meant to prove your way into your timeline. You were meant to remember your way into it. And once you do, once your frequency stabilizes in that remembrance, manifestation becomes less about calling in and more about catching up to what's already waiting. The right timeline doesn't need to be built. It's already constructed in the quantum field. Your only task is to become the you who belongs there, to speak in that frequency, to walk in that rhythm, to breathe in that resonance. And the moment you do, it finds you. Not with noise, with knowing, not with striving, with stillness. There's a sacred shift that happens when you stop asking, how do I get it? And start asking, who am I when it's already here? That single pivot from seeking to being alters your entire field. It rewrites your emotional code. It collapses timelines because it dissolves the very separation you've been unconsciously maintaining. See, when you're constantly trying to get to your manifestation, you're affirming its absence. You're vibrating with the gap. You're feeding the timeline that says, I'm not there yet. And that vibration is what delays the arrival. But the moment you embody the version of you who already holds it, already trusts it, already breathes as if it's done, you stop chasing and start attracting, not with effort, with coherence. That version of you, the one who lives the timeline your heart aches for, isn't striving. They're settled. They're anchored. They don't need proof to relax. Their very presence is the proof. And that presence is what the field reads as ready. The paradox is beautiful. The less you grip, the more you magnetize. The more you relax, the more reality bends. Because you're no longer leaking energy into timelines of lack. You're holding your vibration steady, signaling to the quantum, this is who I am now, not someday. Now, not when the evidence arrives. Before. That's coherence. That's the kind of signal the universe cannot ignore, because it's whole, it's undivided, it's safe. Safety is the secret, not the surface kind and the deep kind, the kind that lives in the body, the kind that tells your nervous system, we're not in survival anymore, we're not repeating the past. It's safe now to be seen, safe to receive, safe to rest. That's the point where your field shifts from hypervigilance to openness, from bracing to blooming. And in that blooming, the timeline doesn't just appear, it aligns. It clicks into place like it was always meant to, because it was. But you weren't able to hold it yet, not until your body remembered what your soul already knew. This is your natural state, receiving, expanding, trusting. You don't have to think positive to manifest. You have to feel safe enough to be authentic. That means allowing the fear, meeting the doubt, holding space for the parts of you that still flinch, and not abandoning them. Because healing doesn't interrupt manifestation, it fuels it. Every time you regulate instead of react, every time you choose presence over performance, every time you soothe instead of suppress, you are stabilizing your signal. You are becoming the you who no longer needs to fix or chase. You are magnetizing through integrity, and from that integrity, life starts to reorganize, not chaotically, harmoniously. You start to notice what doesn't match you falls away without force. Conversations shift, people reveal themselves, new invitations arrive that feel like alignment instead of effort. This isn't coincidence, it's coherence. It's your external reality reconfiguring to meet the signal you've decided to embody. Not from hustle, from harmony. And the more you trust this process, the faster it unfolds. Not because you're pushing, but because you're no longer resisting. Because you're no longer split between who you are and who you think you need to become. You've collapsed the gap. You've remembered the truth. You're not waiting for your future. You're transmitting it right now through every breath, every choice, every moment. You decide to stay in frequency rather than in fear. This is where manifestation becomes less about goals and more about attunement, less about vision boards and more about vibrational integrity, less about strategy and more about state. You are always transmitting, always informing the field. So the question isn't, is it coming? The question is, am I living in the timeline where it already has? And if the answer is no, then what would I need to shift in sensation, in story, in self, to step into that timeline now? Because once you step in, once you stop peeking into the future and start embodying it, the timeline stops being a dream. It becomes your default, your normal, your new now. There comes a moment, quiet and undeniable, when you realize the timeline isn't somewhere far away. It's inside you. It always was. It was never about getting there. It was about becoming here, about dissolving the static of your doubts until your signal sang clearly enough for the quantum to respond, not out of mercy, but out of mirror, because that's all the universe has ever been, a mirror to your embodiment. And embodiment isn't a performance. It's not how good you are at staying high vibe. It's how honest you are about where your frequency actually lives. It's how deeply you're willing to feel, without fixing, how bravely you're willing to soften, without knowing. It's when you meet the tightness in your chest, not with shame, but with curiosity. When you notice the old fear rising and breathe, not as an act of control, but as an offering of presence. When you speak your truth, not to manipulate a timeline, but to honor the self that no longer fits inside the lie. This is the you the timeline has been waiting for, the one who no longer performs worthiness, the one who no longer manipulates energy to get a result, the one who lives in alignment because it feels like freedom, not because it guarantees a prize. And paradoxically, that's when the prize arrives, not because you forced it, because you forgot to fight for it, because you stopped outsourcing your joy to its arrival, because you became joy, because you became safety, because you became the future in your body now. It's no longer about asking, when will it happen? That's the question of a reality still rooted in separation. The real question is, can I allow it to happen now, in me? Can I allow the version of me who holds this dream to enter the room, not just as an idea, as a presence, in the way I walk, in the way I breathe, in the silence between thoughts, in the stillness before action? Can I embody that frequency so fully that the old me simply can't find resonance anymore? Because here's the quiet truth. Timelines don't change when the world shifts. They change when you shift. And when your shift is real, and not just in intention but in embodiment, everything recalibrates. People feel it. Opportunities shift shape. The world bends in response, not to reward you, to match you. And when that alignment stabilizes, manifestation feels less like a miracle and more like a memory, like something you already knew, like something that always belonged to you, because it did, and you finally stopped pushing it away with doubt, with urgency, with pretending. You stopped trying to be perfect and started being real. You stopped broadcasting the vibration of almost and started anchoring the vibration of already, and the field heard you. And the future, your true, aligned, coherent timeline, moved toward you with grace. You don't need more effort. You need more embodiment, more honesty, more softness. You need to stop managing your timeline like a project and start living it like a frequency. Start dancing with it like a lover. Start breathing it like a truth, not someday now, because now is the only timeline that ever existed. And in this now, you are already whole, already worthy, already chosen, already here. So exhale the trying, soften the grip, let the timeline land. It's not behind you, it's not ahead of you. It's waiting for the moment you remember, not with your mind, but with your being, that you were never manifesting the wrong reality. You were just living in the wrong signal. And now that you've tuned in, everything changes, not by force, but by frequency, not through effort, through essence, not from wishing, from knowing. Welcome back.